Good morning, everyone who's on East Coast US time. Good afternoon and good night for the whole world. This is the We're Nearly There podcast. And I'm Melinda McClymans, your host, and I'm here with my friend Samarth Balagar. And I'm really excited to have him on because we're going to talk about a critical topic for people doing the great work that's bringing in the future that we want in the world. I think if you look at these projects, you'll find that it's a lot of work. It can be kind of time consuming or feel that way. And where you're balancing lots of things, maybe, different jobs and things like that as you figure it out. So Samarth is the founder of Growing Young, and Growing Young really supports busy professionals in their health journey and helps them, take on new habits or learn new practices, get the information and tools they need to do all those things they need to do to stay healthy and work it into busy lives. And yeah, it's been wonderful learning from him and getting to know him over the years. So without any further ado, is there anything else you want to share about yourself, Samar?
No, not really. I mean, my main focus when I got into this was on movement. That was really how I even came into health. I wasn't really too worried about health when I got in. But then I noticed that a lot of people, especially busy professionals, or to be on a broader segment, working professionals, were aging much quicker than the general population. Because you would see someone like let's say in January, and then by April they would have looked like they would have been aging for the last they would have aged 5 years in like 5 months, which was something that was quite concerning, especially because these
Yeah.
people are the pillars to our economy going forward. So in Growing Young, we are really focusing on trying to slow down or even reverse biological age through whatever natural methods possible.
Mm-hmm.
And then once we have achieved that, then we're going to look forward to see what else can we do in a non-harmful way. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know that movement was your initial interest, and that it led to kind of a 360 approach, where you're looking at all kinds of factors. So I guess before we dive into anything too specific, it'd be great, I think, to connect with our audience on the level of health. Like, what does health mean to you? Like, what are we talking about here today?
Okay. That's actually quite an interesting question because there are a lot of definitions for health, right? And it
Yeah.
is a commercial thing now. But I would define health as us going as close to our source as possible. And when I say source, I'm talking about source of creation, so nature, right? For example,
Yeah.
most human beings who move well, eat well, and sleep well are most likely to be healthier than all the other people because they are closer to their source of creation.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a lot to unpack too. So source being nature, so kind of like our DNA in a way. Like, if we break away from it, we're gonna pay a price, I guess.
Yeah, and also I believe that most people nowadays do not understand the price that we are paying because we have been gradually taken away from it. Right? For
Mhm.
example, if
Yeah.
you look at the rates of diabetes shooting up over the last 2 decades, right? And I'm
Yeah.
not even coming to the fact that diabetes probably didn't even exist like 3 centuries ago, 2 centuries ago, even.
Wow.
Yeah. And so a lot of the diseases that we're facing now are lifestyle diseases, but a
Yeah.
lot of the cures that have been, like pushed forward to help remove these diseases from us is all nothing to do with lifestyle. Of course, doctors can do their best by telling people to maintain a healthy lifestyle, but people don't really want to do it because there's a lot of resistance to it.
Yeah, and you only have like I mean, I don't know what it's like where you are, but sometimes we only have like, it seems like only 5 minutes with the doctor, you know, and it's not, you're not going to have like a transformative conversation in 5 minutes. So, so yeah, I mean, it's not that doctors aren't important. I think they're very important in the whole equation, but yeah, there needs to be maybe community support. There needs to be like, professionals, experts, you know, in different aspects of health. Also, I think friends, you know, like that hold you. That's how I am. I'm a very like uh, friendship oriented person. Like if I have a friend who I'm going to work out with, I'm just a lot more likely to work out. I need the buddy system. Awesome. So basically, I guess what we want to focus on then is, you know, with all these things, it can seem challenging to kind of quote unquote fit them all in. Or what do you see as professionals' biggest challenge with I don't know, like the time management piece, I guess, or like how you fit it in?
Honestly, I think it's just a matter of priorities, right? Because we do a lot of things we don't want to do in a day, right? We wake up earlier than we want to. We go to work on most days when we don't want to, right? And work always presents us with new challenges that we don't want to do. And our life is pretty much programmed a lot around what we don't like to do, right? And you know,
Come to think of it.
yeah, because even as entrepreneurs, there are most of the situations. Like for example, when I got into entrepreneurship, I got in to help people grow towards, like in this particular case, towards their health, right? But I have to do taxes. I don't want to do taxes.
Mm,
Right? And to be honest, just things like this we always come across. And because we have not really kept health into these things of we have to do them even if we don't want to do them, it has continuously deteriorated to a point where we're now comfortable putting it in a closet, right? And it's also come to a point where we're trying to normalize certain things which are not normal. Like for example, um, obesity, right? So I don't have anything against any body type of people, and I'm also specifically referring to the people who are not either metabolically diseased, genetically diseased, or people with just really wide bone frames, right? But
hmm.
I'm talking about all the other people that come in as obese or people who come in as skinny fat. These things are trying to be normalized right now, and the worst part about it is that brands always pick up on this stuff, right? Because it's about being sensitive to your target audience. So if you're like, if you're Levi's, you're going to design jeans around plus size people if all the people who are buying your product is plus size,
Yeah,
right? And they're going to spend millions of dollars on a marketing campaign that says normalize this because it's profitable. It's not
yeah,
really anything else. But on a health standpoint, forget doctors. Anybody will tell you that like being above a certain body fat or having extra amount of visceral fat or feeling stiff in most of your body parts is not a healthy thing to be,
absolutely.
right? And also I think the hardest thing that people go through is this mindset change, because nothing that I'm going to say over here or that people are going to look for on Google is going to be rocket science, right? Our ancestors knew how to do it without asking people. It was
Yeah,
not, right. It wasn't something that was that big of an issue. But also I do want to acknowledge that the fitness space in itself has been crowded by a lot of people trying to promote their product, which does make it confusing nowadays. For example, I put out a poll on my LinkedIn the other day asking which fruit has the highest vitamin C, and I put in orange, guava, and mango. Which one do you think it is, by the way?
um Based on taste, maybe mango because it's like got that acidic, vitamin C has a taste to it.
Right. That's
Guava is more like a soft fruit. I don't know. Which one is it?
it's guava.
Is it guava?
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah,
But
I don't
most
associate it with vitamin C at all.
Yeah, I mean, like that's what marketing has done to it, right?
Yeah.
Because how we sort of break it down is, well, most of the people answered orange on that, by the way, and
Yeah.
because orange has been promoted as vitamin C, and then we look at the orange, and then we look for similarities of the orange, which could be its citrusy flavor, and I assume
Mhm.
that's how you arrived at guava as well, because sorry, at mango, because it's a little more tangy in taste,
Tangy. Yeah, exactly. Totally. Yeah,
right?
I totally. Well, come to think of it though, I mean, there's some vegetables that have a lot of vitamin C that aren't tangy at all. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I think parsley has vitamin, like, I don't know. But yeah, that's interesting.
Right.
You get these associations, with words and images.
Right. And that's really where my biggest problem lies, is that a lot of people tend to take up their time, right? Because everybody wants to be healthier. Nobody in this world thinks they're at the pinnacle of their health, right? And even the ones who are really trying still want to get better at it, provided that they don't have to do way more than they're already doing, because most likely they would be doing quite a lot to be at the healthiest state they've been in. But
Yeah.
the problem comes in when they are wasting their time going around eating things or drinking things or just consuming things in general, looking at what the propaganda around it is, right? So now we have disappointment because it's not going to lead to results. And now we're also looking at a bunch of people who are saying we really tried, but we couldn't do it. But what they have done is they have tried the wrong thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So what would be the right thing, or what would be the mindset that would get somebody back on track? Like, how do you resist all that propaganda?
I think it's fairly simple. Step one is always first understanding what is your biological makeup, right? And we're not here, it gets very specific because we are in a place where a lot of people are moving towards their feelings, right? And feelings have become increasingly important over the generation. So here, it's always biomarkers, right? We're not double guessing things. So get a
Hmm.
blood test, right? That's like the possibly the most economical thing a person can do,
Hmm.
right? Then if you are more interested, so like if you have been facing problems, for example, that you cannot answer or doctors have been unsure of, right? For example, let's say you have severe bloating, right? But you seem to be eating
Yeah.
a healthy diet and your doctor says they're not sure, get a genetic test, right? I would recommend an epigenetic test.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. Interesting.
Yeah. There's a really good company in the US, particularly called Inside Tracker.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of professionals have recommended that. I think that's a good way to go, right?
And
If you are,
that's some kind of DNA test, or?
yeah, it's an epigenetic DNA test. So
Okay.
basically, you have your DNA, and then you have the things on top of your DNA that control it. So
Oh,
think of
okay.
yeah, so think of your DNA like a remote control car, right? And
Yeah.
think of your epigenetics as the remote control.
So, like, isn't epigenetics like looking at us as a collective?
No, I mean we of course we all have epigenetics, like that's the nature of it. But how our epigenetics? First of all, we are given some genetic makeup by birth, right?
Yeah.
And then our response to the environment switches those things around.
Oh, yeah. I see what you mean. Yeah. Yep.
Right. So that gap of adaptation that is between what genes were given and how they are expressing themselves to the environment is where epigenetics comes in,
Yeah. That's
right?
really true. Yeah. So epigenetics is looking at large populations to learn how certain elements in our environment can activate the DNA in a different way, or one way or the other.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas if you go to the doctor, I mean, the doctor's basically, I mean, that's not the doctor's specialty. Doctors would just be guessing. They may point you to some epigenetic studies or something, but they don't know if it applies to you. So yeah, I think this is all about like how much can we, put our health in our own hands, like be in charge of it and sort of say, I'm responsible for my decisions, and so therefore I have to get the best information. And but also it's just kind of like a mindset, right?
Hmm. It is. I mean, like starting off from here will at least give you a base point as to how your body works. Because otherwise, what happens is uh, everything that we like about food is somehow associated with our memory and feelings. Right?
Hmm.
It's not really an accurate measure. Like, of course, vegetables are good for everyone. Probably besides, I don't know, high fiber vegetables for people with inflammatory bowel syndrome or something like that.
Hmm.
But in general, vegetables and fruits are good for everyone.
Yeah.
Water is good for almost everyone, but a lot of us don't like the taste of water. So, like,
Hmm.
when feelings come in like that, it's very easy to say, "Oh, my body operates better on Diet Coke." But
Wishful thinking.
yeah, I wish, like I even put out a poll saying, "Do you wish that water tasted like Diet Coke?"
You did,
Right?
you put that out? What did people say?
Actually, my audience is mostly people above the age of 35. So a lot of people said no, but I'm sure that if it was people below the age of 35, the answer would have been yes.
Yeah, that's true. I drank Diet Coke in my 20s. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Because it seems to make sense, right? It's like, oh, wow, it's a hack. Can have what I want and no calories. Um, but I think at a certain point, probably mid 30s, and I think that point came because I was having health problems, and I was like, um, more in tune then to change my thinking. Um, so yeah, hopefully people don't have to get to that point, but maybe that's just how it is.
yeah. And this actually also brings me to my second point is once you've gotten your test done,
Hmm.
right? Stop becoming a pain averse individual because pain is one of the greatest indicators of what you are doing right and wrong,
Wow.
right? It's sort of like your bank balance as an entrepreneur many a times.
Yeah.
Right? Because like, if you're losing a lot of money and you have no plan, it's highly unlikely that you're doing something right.
Yeah. It is
Yeah.
like budgeting and math in a way, like accounting in a way.
Yeah. So I think a lot of the times what happens is we've been told that pain is bad from a very young age, right? Which is also,
Hmm.
I would say, a good explanation to why a lot of people try to run away from their uh, dark side or shadow side, although I'm not very happy using those terms.
Hmm.
But we do understand that that is without that you cannot have a complete personality, and it's
Yeah.
the same thing with health, right? So it's like, let's say you're trying to move, like a simple example, you're trying to move your hand behind your shoulder, right? Let's say your hand stops somewhere here and it
Yeah.
hurts from here onwards, but
Yeah.
you know for the fact that your hand is supposed to be able to do that, right? So what does that mean? Does that mean that you stop moving your hand from here? No, it just means that of course you don't do it without awareness because you may
Yeah.
injure it. But what that also means is that you have something to work on now, right?
Yeah. And I think a lot of people actually decide the former. They decide to not move their arm anymore. And I don't think it's a conscious decision, but it's like, I mean, I remember when I was a kid, I learned this when I was a kid about vaccines. Like you should actually, if it hurts, you should actually move your arm more.
Mm,
You know, because one time I got a shot when you're a kid, that's like kind of a big deal, you know? And so I kind of was holding my arm and not moving it, and it got stiff. It
yeah.
was probably the first time in my life my arm got stiff or my muscles got stiff because I was really young, you know? And I was like, oh, why does my arm hurt? And, you know, my mom or an adult was like, because you haven't moved it. You know, it was like, you know, and and now you know, vaccines have been in the news, and again, I've had those conversations with people are like, it's like they're like, oh, my arm hurts. I'm like, are you moving it? You know, or like people will get the vaccine in their non-dominant arm. I'm like, get it in your dominant arm because you'll be moving it. You know, um, so yeah, I think it's like unconscious, yeah, pain aversion. That's really interesting.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
huge problem that I notice, especially like in my generation, because I think we were the first generation to truly move into four walls with a lot of technology, right? And I think also the pandemic just reinforced that. It was like the examination to see how far away can you get from nature, and how how differently can you do things from the way you're supposed to do them to
yeah.
do,
Oh my
right? But
gosh.
it's not the pandemic's fault. Um, we found it pretty comfortable to do anyways, right? It's not like
Yeah,
people went around saying, okay, let me get some plants, let me put some grass in my house and grow something. They were just like, screw it, like, we'll just do whatever we
yeah.
can.
I
Yeah.
did. I worked overtime and messed up my knee. That's kind of how, um, you know, my most recent health journey, you know, and you know this because I, I got feedback from you at the time, you know, it's like, you better get that looked at. So I ended up getting surgery, you know, but it's what's really sad is just because of the bed I was sleeping in and the fact that I was seated in a posture that wasn't very good for my knees for many hours every day because I was working so much, you know. And even though I was sort of taking breaks, I was sort of walking. It was not enough, like not even close to enough, because I used to walk without really thinking about it constantly because I'd be walking in between physical meetings, you know, every day, and I really didn't think about it. And suddenly I went to almost zero, and it was a real wake up call, you know, to think about like, how can I integrate movement and, you know, like right now I'm at my standing desk and it's like I couldn't live without it now because I mean, I don't like to even sit for 15 minutes, more than 15 minutes now. It's hard for me, honestly. Like I start to get a headache. I notice my body, you know, certain symptoms in my body and things like that just from sitting. Um, so yeah, and just, you know, doing that morning exercise, like that is my medicine. Like instead of a pill, you know, because people get very kind of religious about their pills, taking them at the right time. And I'm not saying don't do that because if you have pills you need to take, do it.
Mm.
But instead of the pill, it's like I'm doing my sun salutation, I'm doing my squats, I'm doing my plank, or you know, as literally as taking a pill. Because yeah, you're right. Like I don't feel like I have a million, even though I've made that a habit, I will still come up with things to not do it for. Like, oh, some things come up in the morning like that are more important in my mind. So I really try not to do that. I really try to say, you know, take the pill, like do do the morning. And yeah, I think that's really important to recognize.
Yeah. Also, like you mentioned, it's just your brain is going to come up with every logical decision on why you shouldn't do it. And when you are pain averse, even the smallest amount of logic seems fair to do. And that's something that all of us have been looking to avoid, mainly because also I think the medical industry has gone into this whole concept of pain aversion, right? We've been taught that pain is bad, and that's why we have things like painkillers. Although I do think that that is an inappropriate name for something that numbs your pain instead of kills it.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, but that's what, right? Like it's as a society, it's okay for you or me to take pills like painkillers,
Hmm.
but if you were to have, let's say, like a salad when you went out with your friends, everyone's just going to look at you as if, like, why are you being so condescending? Why can't you just eat normal people food?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. There's definitely something to be said for who you surround yourself with too, you
yeah,
know, and getting to the point where, you don't care about others' opinions for one thing, but like also I think it's just important to like if even if you become like a total nonconformist, you don't give a damn what people think, you still need to be aware of your social setting, I think. It
yeah.
still impacts your choices. And yeah, what do you say about that? I'm curious, like about the social aspect.
I mean, it is quite a controversial topic, right? Because if I told most people that a lot of people they surround themselves with. So, for example, actually, India is a great example for this, right? So, very old culture, very diverse culture, right? We
Yeah.
come mostly from a lineage of farmers, right?
Yeah.
And farmers eat a lot of carbohydrates. In fact, they need it because they spend around,
It's massive physical labor every day.
yeah, and even with
Carrying things, plowing. I don't know. Like it's just like I started going to farms in Ohio. I'm in Ohio, and Samarth is in well, Bangalore, but I don't know which state that is. I should know that.
Karnataka.
Okay, and I started going to farms. Like I started really getting passionate about getting local food grown by local farmers in Ohio for so many reasons, but one of them being health. The primary one at first was health, because I can actually ask the farmer, how did you grow this? And, and things like that. It really, the quality matters so much, in your food. And I also love yogurt. I make my own yogurt,
Nice.
kefir, um, different things. And so I started going to this family farm for their milk, this amazing milk. It's incredible too. You get to know how the difference is, like in different seasons, it tastes different, has different fat content. You get to learn what milk really is, if you do that. It's beautiful. And, all the kids were so fit. And they're like, yeah, we
Mm.
don't work out. It's just our lifestyle. Like, we have to carry really, and the women and the men like had to carry massive weights all the time, every day, and they're just like really strong and healthy. They're out, in fresh air. Um, and yeah, I mean, that's really eye opening.
Right. So, even now with modern technology, they still probably burn almost twice as much calories as a normal individual. And let's say, like in India, let's say not even 2 generations ago, 1 generation ago, right,
Hmm.
when my dad was young, uh,
Hmm.
they didn't have that many machines. So they would probably burn 3 times as much calories as a normal human being today, right?
Wow.
As an average. And it's not surprising because it's a lot of cardiovascular activity, right? And a lot of weighted carries, which is again like a mix of strength and endurance. And on top of that, they would go home to eat a lot of carbohydrates that were more likely to shoot your blood sugars up much lesser than what, like of carbohydrates that we
You
get
mean like
now.
the type of carbohydrates they're eating?
No, it's not just the type of
Oh,
carbohydrate, it's just the quality with which it was grown. So, like,
oh,
if you,
okay.
yeah,
Wow.
so post 1960s
Yeah.
and 70s, when pesticides were commonly introduced, right, to get more produce,
Yeah.
and I think this particularly originated in America. They did notice in
Yes.
studies that wheat that we eat now, right, is spiking people's blood sugar slightly more than it was before that.
Interesting.
So
That
I
makes
mean,
sense because I
yeah,
find
but
I'm kind of like naturally sensitive to those spikes. I think my DNA, and I find I really need to avoid anything with flour in it, or else I start to get, I can actually feel when I'm starting to get some insulin insensitivity because I feel those crashes and stuff. Yeah. And wheat seems to be the worst culprit. Like sugar obviously is going to do it, but wheat almost seems worse. It's almost like it has like a time release, impact or so. I don't know what it is about flour based products. I love them. They're delicious, but I don't allow myself to eat them very often.
yeah. So I mean, although that study is questionable, because if at all people were walking around way more after eating and before eating back then,
Yes.
it's highly likely that they were just more insulin sensitive. But
Yes.
it goes to show that a lot of the things that we are eating now are not what they used to be, and neither is our lifestyle. So how our body reacts to it is not going to be the way our ancestors reacted. Like, for example, my grandmom, right, my
Yeah.
dad's mom, is
Yeah.
94 years old and she's still walking around.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
but it's highly unlikely that if I did everything that she did now with the produce available now, that I would live till 94, even if I had the same genetics.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
because when you think about it, let's say we buy stuff from the supermarket,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Just we buy bottled water, right? A lot of the water has more chemicals mixed in it. It's not from a
Yeah.
pure source.
Yeah.
uh, the fruits that we buy most of the time have wax on them, right? All the, like you said, like whether it's wheat or anything else, uh, in order for the crop to be grown, we're going to be putting a lot more pesticides, a lot more fertilizers, a lot of these things. And of course, the continuous degradation of the land over the last 2 3 decades have again, in itself been contributing to all of this. So it's unlikely that even if I ate the same things that she ate with the same genetics, that I would grow up to be that healthy.
That's true. Now that you point that out, yeah. There's
Yeah.
just so many little changes, factors, that add up.
Yeah. But to come back to your question about how, like what is the consequence of having a social circle around you,
Yeah.
right? So, but even though that has happened, right? So we all know that all these changes have happened. A lot of people in India are still going to tell you to, like, so in India we have like this tradition, at least like near my household, where
Hmm.
they put ghee, otherwise known as clarified butter. We sort of like pour it, and if we don't pour it, like neither do we have the satisfaction of feeding someone, and neither do they have the satisfaction of eating it, right? That's like a sweet thing to hear, unless this person already has like tons of visceral fat that is causing insulin resistance, because now you're sort of poisoning the individual.
So, ghee is something, maybe I didn't understand. So, you're supposed to be generous with ghee?
Yeah, because
Or-
it's firstly an expensive product,
Yeah.
right? So it shows
Yes.
generosity.
It's
Um,
wonderful.
yeah.
Yeah.
And second of all, tastes damn good. I'll give it that. Tastes really good.
Butter. Yeah. Butter too. Yeah.
Yeah, and this one, like the way we make it in India, like straight from the cows, damn, that is so good. Like
Yeah.
even the grocery store over here versus
I would
like,
love to try it there. Oh my God. Yeah. I actually have made my own butter too. Like I'm really like into dairy. So yeah, I would love to try it.
yeah. Next time you're here, remind me. I'll take you.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be exciting.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But you see, as like a societal consequence, what that has done is it's so easy to overeat something like that,
Oh my
right?
God.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if people around you were walking 20 kilometers a day and lifting even 4 kilos for 7 rounds of a farm,
Hmm.
That might seem okay. That might even seem necessary, right?
Yeah.
Especially on hot days.
Oh,
But
totally. Like,
yeah,
oh, more calories? Great. Like that's a better choice.
yeah. But I'm sure like five people combined wouldn't do that much effort in a day now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we
Yeah.
still eat the same. And the thing is, for example, if I were to go on a social outing, right, with the same people, like whoever they are, like my friends, they've all been it's been imbibed into their head. So it's sort of like if they don't pour ghee into your food, you are allowed to take offense from something like that. You sort of like look at them and be like, oh, maybe this dude's
Yeah.
stupid.
It's just it's part of the expectation of like good food and
Yeah.
generosity and hospitality. And yeah.
Yeah, and India being like a country known for its hospitality, right? Because I've
Yeah.
been to a bunch of countries, I have not seen hospitality like this. Because here we sort of pride ourselves with even getting our hands washed where we sit after eating, right? Self-service is something that came about probably like when McDonald's got here.
Wow. Yeah. That's really interesting.
Yeah. So
That's it is a big cultural difference between the US and India too.
yeah.
I mean, not
So
that we're not hospitable, but like all those details of, how you kind of take care of people, guests, very, very different. So yeah, we could go into that, I'm sure, for a whole other podcast though. So
yeah.
so give me some examples. I mean, I'm sure, the audience is wondering, well, what are some like strategies or like what are some specific things I can put on my to-do list for better health?
Okay, so once you've gotten yourself checked and see what deficiencies you have, fix that first, right? Because being malnourished is the first way to rapid aging. Always fix that first, right?
Okay.
So usually people have vitamin D deficiencies. Vitamin B12 is another common one that's usually turning up now. So that's point one. Stop being malnourished. Point two, I might sound like a little bit of a hypocrite for saying this, but get your sleep right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is unarguably the best thing that you can do for yourself, which also means don't oversleep, because that's a thing as well. A lot of people who love sleeping forget that there's something called oversleeping.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. So you have like an optimum amount of sleep, after which it's not really helpful.
Interesting. Okay.
Some
Well,
cases,
I definitely feel like around 8 hours, 7.5, 8 hours. But yeah, sometimes like I'll oversleep. And I know that you're not supposed to be able to make up sleep, but my whole life I've done that. Like I will have like a weekend where I just sleep,
mm,
you know? Um, so yeah, I don't know why that is. That's interesting.
yeah, I think definitely it the weekends that you speak about are more beneficial than them not being there. That's for sure, right? Because
Totally.
if at all you were to, yeah, if you were to, let's say, get adequate amount of sleep on those days, like between 7.5 to 8 hours,
Hmm.
it probably would not be as beneficial as oversleeping on those days if you are sleep deprived,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? But the reason also why I say this is because many a times what happens is, for example, if you eat a lot of carbohydrates before you go to sleep, right before you go to sleep, right? It's highly likely that your sleep duration will increase, your desire to sleep will increase, right? So a lot of variables over there. But that being the second point, third point being make sure you move. And when I say move, a lot of people are just going to pick movements of their choice. But
Hmm.
most people don't understand that how you move is directly correlated to how you think. And this is extremely important, right? Because this is something I've been exploring more recently. But think about it like this, right? Uh, when does a plant move? A plant moves towards resources,
Yeah.
right? So it moves towards sunlight, the roots move towards water and
Yeah.
minerals, right? So technically, all the intelligence that we've been given as a species is to move towards sustenance,
Yeah.
right? So when it comes to just the human brain as well, it is meant for movement. Thought, emotions, these things arise later, but it is movement, and it is like just brain activity. It's just one connection. That's also why a lot of people, who do really well in their lives, whether it is financially or just well-being wise, they do things they don't feel like doing all the time. It's just that they have less resistance from their brain while doing those things. Right? And how is that? Because you control your thoughts, your emotions, and your behaviors through movement. So that's what the brain is meant for,
Yeah.
right? So make sure you move, and make sure you move differently, because like a lot of fitness comes around people having abs, right? Like, and I can also say that, for example, a bunch of my clients have asked me how to get abs, uh,
Yeah.
but it's not doing the same movements repeatedly is definitely better than doing no movement at all. But the consequence of doing the same movement repeatedly is that you develop a posture for it. So that means your brain now thinks of those movements in a certain emotion. It's the same as food, right? So you
Yeah.
have certain foods that you like eating, and then it will trigger a certain thought response, right? Same thing with movement. So for example, if I was a world class deadlifter, right,
Yeah.
and I saw like the weight in front of me, and I was going to deadlift, my brain's just going to go, okay, focus, aggression, what else do we need, right, to lift this weight off the floor. That is
Yeah.
the thought process.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the
Interesting.
same thing when we're thinking.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like you see people, like when they scratch their head, they're confused. When they stroke their beard, they're thinking.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Yeah. So movements, the pattern has a meaning. Like I think meaning is always rooted in pattern. So movement's no different. Um, Also in music, traditionally there's been certain emotions for certain scales, and when you're looking at more, traditional forms of music, like very specific emotions go with different scales, especially in the Eastern music systems. And yeah, that's amazing. And I mean, I think also like as a woman, like I just feel like the movements that make men feel good or make them healthy, I don't know, like I've started to lean toward things that integrate different types of movements that maybe make me less masculine,
Mm,
like more stretches, like more getting deep. Like sometimes in the US, we have these yoga classes called yin classes, which is like the female polarity. Um, and those things put me to sleep. Like they are very yin, like they're almost too yin. But they can be good if that's what you want, just stretching and sitting very still and things like that. But I'm kind of looking at, different ways to both strengthen and stretch and integrate that more into what I'm doing. Because actually, I'm kind of a yoga nerd too. I told you this last time we talked. I think my friend decided to get certified in yoga. And so she needed a guinea pig, to teach Ashtanga yoga to.
mhm.
So I was like, I'm your guinea pig, and so we were really getting into it and going to different yoga studios and all this stuff. But I looked into the history of Ashtanga yoga, and it was designed for basically warriors, to get them fit, to get them ready to move, those aggressive actions and quick actions and things like that. So that's really interesting to me because I that may not be the full spectrum of my spirit, and it also may not help my body in ways that my body really needs it. Because I mean, I have a, you know, having the female chromosome, my hips are shaped completely different. You know, my angles are completely different. So like I'm looking into slight changes that add, you know, maybe support my fitness goals more as a woman. So yeah, I think movement means a lot, you know, has a lot of meaning to it. And like whether it's emotion or just kind of how you move in the world, that even that has a certain ring to it. Like it sounds like sort of it's your true self in a way, is how you move in the world, or like how true are you to your true self and how you move in the world.
Mm.
And at a certain point, I think I started wanting to express myself as I'm being true to myself, you know, and like even the clothes I wear or the way I move or my posture and things like that.
Right, right. That's an interesting point. I mean, it is true that, I mean, of course, a lot of the masculine and feminine imperative does come from biology and then has been clouded with the shroud of, just the society. So it is a little bit difficult to decipher, but you are right. Like certain movements, like for example, um, just hunting, right?
Yeah.
Movement. Yeah, and it requires certain survival skills, it requires certain disciplines. And of course, that's also why there was this study that I read. It was really hilarious, where apparently men feel more masculine after eating meat.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was just one of those funny studies. But yeah, I mean, like it just goes to show, right? Because it's not just now, of course, it's like you go buy meat, but before it's like you have to hunt down that meat. There's
Yeah.
huge, you have to work, and of course you want the prime meat, which basically means it's a healthy animal, which is going to be harder to target,
Right. Right.
right?
Wow. That's
Yeah,
deep. That is deep. Yes, deep in our DNA.
yeah. And also, for example, and actually for a lack of better examples, probably because I'm not a woman, like
Yeah.
giving birth and taking care of children is
Right?
a huge feminine movement. Like
Well, and it's massive calories.
it's huge. Yeah, like apparently,
Yeah.
it's not abnormal for a woman's caloric intake to go up by almost 900 calories when they're pregnant, which is
Yeah.
insane. That's
Yeah.
insane. Yeah,
It's a huge physical expenditure. Massive. And then it doesn't
actually,
end because then you have to raise the kids.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
mean, that way,
Like, these things are real, you know, they shape who we are, whether at the DNA level or actually doing these things, actually hunting, actually giving birth. But I think in any case, they shape our core kind of patterns.
right? And like you said, it is, I would say that it is important that we do both, but the magnitude at which you feel each of them, of course, will vary according to your biological sex.
Totally, totally. It's not like I think, oh, there should be a women's workout and a men's. No, not really. But I do have to say, like, it's nice to go to a gym that has women's sized equipment, you know, and things like that, because it just feels more smooth and manageable to get the workout. But it's not really that big of a deal. I mean, actually, I've come to really enjoy just, and maybe you can even talk about this, like using my own body weight as my workout, you know, like just doing planks, doing squats, and not, I have started, like, because one of your videos talked about taking a weight like this. I was like,
Hmm.
I'm doing that. So I started doing that I just filled a milk, empty milk, of course, milk
Hmm.
jug with water, and I just keep it next to, like, I have some very simple like equipments, I guess, you know, like bands and things like that. Can you
Hmm.
talk about that? Like just simple using your own body, things you can do at home?
Yeah, I think that's one of the most important skills you need to learn. generally as a human being that can move, right? Because the floor is such an important tool. Like, I cannot stress
Mm.
this enough. The floor is such a ridiculously important tool that most people are not even going to look at, because it's not the floor's fault that we lack imagination, right? It's like a lot of people I hear, because they're just like, oh, the gym's so far away, I can't head to the gym. It's like, bro, who asked you to go to the gym,
Yeah.
right? And I'm even talking about, like, when I train trainers and conditioned folks, right? There
Yeah.
are still at least like 5 floor movements that they could do, and they will struggle. Like, they will sweat, they will struggle. Obviously, you want to be able to. The whole concept of a gym is important because it allows you to see progressive overload in a simpler manner, right? But you can also see progressive overload on the floor. It will take longer. But if we're all not result oriented, especially because health, it, actually, one of the people that I spoke to on phone said it best. Health is not, it's not about, like any field like marketing or things like that. It's more like operations. It's like you got to do it every day, and it has to be almost the same every day, if not in small increments. Right. So that's the same thing with health. So I feel like a lot of people need to just give up the whole result driven approach and take a more exploration driven approach when it comes to just exploring the floor. And, like, forget exploring the floor. Like, if you think you're really good at the floor,
Mhm.
like, try using the wall, right?
Yeah.
Like, try using your hands and walk on the wall with your feet. No way. Like, I can assure you that there are a lot of people who can squat 150 kilos, but not walk on the wall with their hands touching on the floor,
Wow. Yeah.
right? And if both those things are something that you have done and you have mastered, which I think will take more than a lifetime, to be honest.
Hmm.
So if you have mastered those two, climb a tree.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's honestly that simple. Like, the other day, I was just, I don't know what happened. I was walking and then I got bored of walking straight. So I started walking in reverse. I took like rounds around my apartment walking in reverse. And I'm beginning to realize, as the inclination changes, right, of the ground, the way it changes,
Yeah.
it's like my body is adapting. And I'm discovering like a certain new angle in which I'm walking, which otherwise I wouldn't have really thought of.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've been moving for ages.
Good for the knees to sometimes walk backwards. It
Yeah,
helps. Yeah. I looked into that when I was having knee issues. So yeah, that's a really great thing. Simple things people can do. Just finding a little bit of space, maybe in your apartment. Um, yeah. And just walking backwards. If you don't even have enough space for that, it really doesn't take much room to do a floor routine, doesn't take
doesn't
much.
take much time either.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just that, like, people have to step out of what we've been told as conventional marketing. This is like the same vitamin C scene all over again,
Yeah.
right? Because
Exactly.
yeah, it's beneficial. And gyms, the way they operate is that their best paying customer, right? Let me say, their ideal customer persona, right, is a person who pays for the gym on a yearly, barely goes there, and always clicks pictures while they're there.
Wow. Yep.
Yeah.
And that's basically that's the model.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's crazy how we all know that, but we still fall for it. And
Yeah.
and a lot of people speak about, like, like, motivation. I don't get motivated at home. I don't get this. It's like, if you were to just
I can see
Jerry
that.
Seinfeld, yeah,
I can
Jerry
see
Seinfeld,
that.
yeah, you know Jerry Seinfeld, right, the comedian.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like this one thing that he said, where he had this part of his routine where he would give 2 hours to write, right, in a
Right.
day, and he was allowed to do just writing and be bored, but he was allowed to do nothing else
Nothing
in the
else. Okay. Interesting.
yeah, of course. not all of us have 2 hours to spend on
Mhm.
a lot of these things. But if you gave yourself 45 minutes, threw your phone away, and sat in an empty room,
Yeah, and said, I'm canceling these meetings, and you can always reschedule them if you need some time for your own health or your own um, writing goals.
yeah.
Yeah.
And this actually, I don't know if the translation of what I say is going to be correct, but in the there is this book called the Shiv Puran, which is considered to be written by Lord Shiva. It's a religious text in India,
Hmm.
right? And in one of the sayings, he says that the soul is a dancer. I don't know if I'm like saying it exactly what it should, the way it should be translated from Sanskrit, but that's pretty much the gist of it.
Yeah.
What that means is if somebody was to be idle for a very long time, right, with absolutely nothing to do, and when I say nothing to do, I don't mean scroll on your phone, right?
Right.
Because that's usually what everyone refers to as nothing to do is like binge on Netflix, still doing something.
It's doing, yeah.
Yeah. So if you were to do nothing, you would automatically start dancing because your body would be so full of energy that you would
Oh, I
actually,
love that. Yeah, that's true. That's right. Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if you give yourself no time, I mean, if you give yourself a good amount of time to do it, your body will actually just teach you how to do it. And then the only thing that you are supposed to do is make sure that you spend time doing uncomfortable movements. I don't mean ones that accentuate pain. I'm talking about just new ones that don't necessarily pain, but like you're weirded out while they're happening. You're like,
Hmm. Yeah. Like you're a little bit scared. You're like, oh, am I going to break something? Yeah.
yeah,
But,
or
but
even
it
something
should,
as
it
simple as
shouldn't be like, it's like, it's like, um, unfortunately, I've had some people I'm close to in my life who've had surgeries. And when I was a kid, I'm Gen X, so I was born in 74. And when I was a kid, it was still more the mindset in the US, like, oh my God, you've had a surgery, rest. Um, but in recent years, they try to get you to get, I mean, after massive surgeries, like these are surgeries that, you know, unfortunately people I've known have had to go through. But they really are like, get moving as soon as possible. They like force people out of the bed now. Like it's the opposite. It's like, I know that it seems really hard, but this is critical for your full recovery to get out of the bed and just walk, not like dance, but, just move at all. Cause I think the worst thing you can do is just, I'm not saying like, I mean, obviously we need to rest every night. We don't move much. There's always like an ebb and flow of everything. But I think the worst thing to do is to spend extended periods of time just not moving. It's really bad for you. So yeah, like what you're talking about with pain, it's really painful for someone who had surgery to move, you know. And it seems scary, like you might break something. So it's like you're finding that path, like whether it's physical therapy or whatever, it's like really hard and really painful. And you don't want to actually injure yourself on top of it. So you do have to listen to your body in that sense, like your joints or whatever. You don't want to like tear things and stuff like that. But sometimes it's really challenging to know, like if you're on that path, um, in terms of like, I think we develop a relationship with pain if we become conscious. So we learn to make friends with it.
I mean, that's what it's there for. It's honestly, I would say, one of the best teachers in life. That's also why people who respond positively, and positive being a subjective word, to trauma, always identify with how they overcame their trauma.
Yes.
Yeah, that's always the case. Like, especially with men, it's like you overcome a trauma, that's your identity. That's how you always introduce yourself. If you want
Yes.
to be known for something, if you want something to be written on your gravestone, that's it.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. Yeah. Yeah, and I think for women too, or just for people in general, like one of my favorite books is "The Body Keeps the Score" by Vander Kolk.
Mm,
I brought it up on this podcast before because it's just so deep. Um, and trauma has everything to do with how we process it. So
yeah.
if you're able to tell the story right away to somebody, it actually tells your brain you're safe because we're very social. Our brain, our body is very. It doesn't matter if you are kind of like a nonconformist and a loner. You're still social. It doesn't matter. It's not about personal preference. It's like our whole physiology is set up to be that way. So if you feel like you've been heard and you can process it,
Mm,
you don't get the PTSD symptoms. And it almost doesn't matter what happened, like what type of trauma. You can be talking about the worst trauma or a seemingly like no big deal trauma. It's all about how you process it. And I think we've all had traumas or things that could potentially be traumas. But I love this book too because it really shows you that there's no objective way to say what a trauma is. It's all about, were you able to process it? And did you have the support around you needed to process it? Like, that's the other thing about modern life. Like, another great book is that I'm reading right now is about literature and how it impacts the brain and theater plays. Performances used to be a very powerful way to discharge PTSD because you'd see a trauma on stage, but you'd be with your community. And there are even certain movements and things that would help the brain, like because of the eye movements and things, to discharge the energy of the pain and the trauma. So it's really interesting, to think about trauma. And I know, it can be depressing to talk about trauma too. Like it's really, really tragic what people have to go through life because of maybe in war or they were abused and things like that, and then their brains are not fully online after that. Like they don't get to feel the full range of emotions. They don't get to experience the full range of life. But I think it's not depressing if you're informed and you learn that it doesn't matter how bad it was. If you're able to and it's not actually, that's the other thing about the body keeps score. Somebody who has really bad PTSD should not talk about what happened, which is the
mm,
opposite of what the old advice was. Like you should go to a therapist. No, like doing movements, being with people, people being present while they're feeling the pain helps them literally like overcome that pain. Like it's all about feeling safe with your pain through others, through movement, like letting it come out in a safe place where you feel supported and loved. That is what does it. And then you can go to the therapist and maybe talk out certain aspects. But this book, I mean, everyone should read this book because and really, yeah, it goes to what you're saying about pain and what we're talking about here in terms of like making friends with pain.
yeah, yeah. Also, I mean, speaking of trauma, like it's one of the it's a very good thing to study, right? The process of how trauma is formed, what how the brain reacts to trauma, what exactly happens, what chemicals are secreted, hormones. Um, it's really important because it shows you what the brain is capable of, right? If at all put under pressure, it can do a lot of things. It's just that we don't prefer pressure because it is a very uncomfortable thing to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, but if we're able to imbibe the process that trauma brings, like how the brain reacts to trauma, and be able to do that willfully, you will have absolutely no friction with moving in any direction in your life that you wish. At least that's what I believe. For myself, that is what has worked quite a bit. uh, I hated being in front of camera. I hated speaking to people. There's just a lot of things that I had to change about myself, because I sort of, first of all, it was just like me allowing myself to look at what I could, the biggest dream I could possibly dream of,
Yeah.
and then being like, yeah, this is what I do, right? And then
Yeah.
I,
Bravo.
thank you. And sort of then after that, you look at yourself and you're like, oh shit, we have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
That's the human condition.
it's and it's I feel like a lot of times what happens is the speed at which you grow sometimes is frightening to people around you because they are used to seeing you in a certain light, and because we are creatures of familiarity, we do not like that much, right? And I feel like this is also why uh so generally for women it has been proven that, just like speaking about what they feel and how they are feeling towards certain situations help them overcome it, right? And also because they feel like they are secure and they feel loved,
Yeah.
which is, I would say, like a huge aspect of dopamine secretion in women. Although, of course, I'm not going to refer to any studies because the studies are pretty flawed in this area, but just generally of what we've noticed. But for men, it is quite different.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, main reason being we sort of like I don't know. I can't speak for all men, right? But the studies have clearly shown that between two people playing chess, right, two men playing chess, they
Mhm.
wanted to see what happens to the other's testosterone level based on the outcome of the game. And
Yeah.
they found out that the man who won the game had a 7% increase in testosterone, and the one who lost had a 9% decrease in testosterone. Now, mix this
Mhm.
with adrenaline,
And
and that is
testosterone is how men feel good, right? Like,
yeah, you could call that one of the hormones of vitality. One of.
yeah.
And the reason why men are capable of feeling more good with testosterone than women is because we have a huge amount of secretion in
Yeah.
general, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm not referring to like, like women from Bosnia who have had such high testosterone levels that they actually had to stop them from participating in certain women events, by the way.
Really?
Because
Wow.
oh, yeah. They weren't allowed to do I think, the 100-meter and the 200-meter run because, first of all, they were tested for testosterone because it really looked like they were taking steroids. And if a general woman took steroids, she would probably be at that level. Probably. Huge. Right?
Wow.
But
So
yeah,
there's
but
always exceptions, but basically
in
there's
general,
more, yeah, generally there's a lot more testosterone in men's systems, and it's something
yeah.
that they experience. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like you said, just like that, certain movements, those are also fueled by hormones because your
Mm,
hormones are your brain's way of understanding the current situation, right? And
mhm.
also imbibing it as memory a lot of times. So I probably all the time, if I'm not wrong. I'm no expert in this field, but yeah, it's and when it comes to overcoming adversity, right? Maybe call it a gift of nature or something.
Yeah.
But for what reason, for what other reason would it seem anywhere plausible for a chimpanzee to look at a chimpanzee twice his size and go, I have to beat that dude? Like,
Yeah.
there's no sense in that. Like, even animals are smart enough to know that you don't mess with something that'll kill you.
Right.
But this whole concept of overcoming adversity is what allows the male gene to thrive for whatever we consider greatness so that our
Wow.
genome is passed on into the next generation.
Wow. So something that could potentially be a trauma could also potentially be the absolute like food that you need to be healthy.
Yeah, overcoming trauma gives you this a sense of life that nothing else will.
Wow.
Like I have never felt better in my life than when I've overcome my fear. That night, like I go to sleep knowing that tomorrow when I wake up,
Yeah.
I will not, like there will be a whole new part of me that existed within me, but I had
Oh
no
my
clue.
gosh, I love that. Yeah. I would love to talk about that more, actually, maybe on another episode or in some other format, because I'm also really big on facing fears, but maybe for different reasons, But I think, like, cut through the bullshit. Just go, what is it you're afraid of?
Yeah.
Then you really find something true about yourself and your patterns and what you need to change,
Yeah. And
Yeah.
also, it sort of increases your ability to face other traumas. Because,
Hmm.
to be honest, life can be very traumatic, right? Yeah. And what you least expect.
Condition.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, for example, like, so I speak about all these things, but like, one dream of one of my parents dying, and I'm like, oh shit. And I wake up with like my heart like in my mouth.
Yeah.
So it is, life can be very traumatic, but the
Yeah.
more you overcome, you have now accumulated proof of how to deal with things. And that is the same thing when it comes to health,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you have minor injuries, and those minor injuries are actually responsible from preventing you from getting major injuries.
I know. Well, with my knee, my other knee started to hurt. I got surgery on one knee, my other knee started to hurt. So I'm doing an experiment on myself. I'm just really trying to get back into alignment and strengthening the knees and every day. So I'm going to see, well, which knee is going to be better. I think now the right knee that wasn't surgeried on is better because the one that had surgery, they removed a lot of my knee, you
Mhm.
know? And so sometimes when I'm going upstairs, I'm like, ooh, that feels like a little too much strain in that knee. But I think it's because there's just not as much knee there to take
Yeah.
the weight. So yeah, so it's like so many things. We are out of time, so just really quickly, or not that quickly. Tell us what you're working on. Like, where can people find you? What are you excited to share? What projects you want to share with people, or maybe opportunities coming up that people might want to take advantage of?
Sure. So you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm always on LinkedIn. One of the main things that we are currently working on is just going through. Uh, I would refrain from calling it a personal training service, but for a lack of simpler words, right? We are doing now online personal training sessions, right? I have
Okay.
trained a bunch of my trainers and also had them trained by other professionals in the field, because we are trying to move out of everything that I spoke of. For example, we're trying to get out of the whole marketing agenda. We're trying to get out of the whole I need to go to gym to be healthy concept, and we're
Yeah.
really put it into perspective. So a lot of the programs that we do actually don't involve more than 3 hours a week. So yeah, we're really trying to cater it to working professionals now.
Hmm.
And one of the most important things over here that we're trying to do is we're trying to also move towards things like natural hormone optimization, so that not only are you doing work, but your body is doing work for you as well.
Nice.
Right? So that's something I'm really excited to work on. I'm just
Yeah.
taking it, yeah, just one step a day, doing one step better every day, right? Learning from what we've learned, like what we've done yesterday. So yeah, and this is what I really hope to move forward, right? And the reason why we choose online is mainly because we want to be able to, like, the company's mission is to be able to spread this word throughout the world, right? Because also that we see many a times, for example, we tried sending personal trainers to people's houses, but it's like, if at all they have to reschedule, they have to wait another day, if they have to do a bunch of these other things. But why not use technology, and why not use nature and all the science that we know between these two, and make something bigger for ourselves,
Ooh,
right?
yeah.
We are technically cyborgs at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I know.
I think it's important that we use both of these things, right?
Yeah.
'Cause we're also in a unique situation, like we mentioned earlier, that things are not what they were. So we do have to use the advantages we have to beat the disadvantages the environment has posed on us, and
Hmm.
that's I'm a huge believer in.
I like that 100%. I mean, there's no turning back now. So we might as well consciously use the tools at our disposal.
Yeah.
Yep. Right on. That's why I had you on my podcast, because you're part of the future that we want. We're the future that we want. We're creating now. With our mindset and just believing it's already here. People are already creating it. It's not like we have to sit around and think, well, what might it be like? No, I mean, we should think, but also take action and um, believe, it is here. We just need to cultivate the good things, and like weeding a garden, weed out the bad things. So there's a lot of weeding to do, I'll admit, but but yeah,
Oh, well, thank you for having me on. It's always fun talking to you.
yeah, I know we have great conversations. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. Thanks so much for joining me. And, I'll write up some show notes. And my next big step, so hold me accountable, is to get these episodes out onto all the podcasting platforms.
Mm.
And also have I launched it on YouTube. So we're on YouTube. But the next step is to really get it and make it a proper podcast. So I'm really excited that you're going to be on, this episode will be on there.
Right. No, I'm so happy that, hopefully everyone who watches this gets some level of value out of it.
Absolutely. I'm going to tell everyone to just watch this. Like if they're talking about mindset or how to integrate, I think also we could have other episodes. Like I'm thinking about the trauma informed, practices, having maybe another speaker on too, and things like that. I think we've touched on a whole number of really powerful topics today.
Sweet.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to end the broadcast.
Right.